Brendan Martin in Ocala, Florida. We got Matt Dean in Memphis, John Hartwell in Monroe, soon to be Fairhope, and Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart down in Shellman's Bluff, Georgia.
Smorgasbord of awesomeness.
Yeah, and it is on the way to what I love about college football, Tony. Don't mean to be a hypocrite. I drive by Legion Field still to this day. My stomach is up in my throat. But there's nothing like the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. It is so big. I love it. It's a must-watch game. We're going to talk about a lot today.
I'll be there.
I'll be there. A lot of people are going to be there. It's a big one. Take a picture with your cell phone of the QR code. We're broadcasting live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Saw what is that, Brendan? 106,000 yesterday. Thank you all so much for watching us on that. Golly, I mean, thank you more than you know.
106,000, yes. We had 106,000 views yesterday's show. 9 times you watched it.
Yes. But do us a favor, share it and like it. It means more than you know, and you'll get a lot out of this show. We have the best guests and the best audience, and man, thank you so much, Tony, for checking in with us. John Hartwell's down here in the bottom corner, Matt Dean, and all of us. Let's get your thoughts. I already got a lot of people. Felix Grundy just texted me and said, ask Tony if he is as high as he's ever been on Texas A&M. He heard you speaking recently and got a chance to talk to you and meet you in person. Has a ton of respect for you. And I want your thoughts about A&M and just college football, and we'll just bounce it around from here. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. I spoke to a group in Atlanta. I was updating my playoff slots and all that kind of stuff. So I tell you what, fellas, I think Texas A&M is good enough to win the national championship. I had just been to College Station, Texas, and was so impressed. And so, yeah, I do think they can win it all. Now, you look at the schedule, there's some tests coming up, and every November, guys, we've talked about this before. This is going to be one of the best Novembers ever because every week there are elimination games starting this week. So it's going to be fun.
Tony, the numbers on college football are off the chart, off the chain, as my kids say. They're big numbers. A lot of people watching, and you've been right. Not even the adults can screw it up.
No, that's exactly. See that's the ironic thing, Rob. You and I have talked about this before. Is that for all the malfunctions, dysfunctions, whatever that's going on in college football, the game on the field, what we watch every Saturday, is better than it's ever been. Yeah. It's a great game. It always delivers. And I remember that Saturday, the Georgia-Alabama weekend. Remember we had all those close games decided by one possession, and that's when you got a sense was the SEC has a lot of really, really good teams. Don't know if there's a great team or not, but they have a lot of really, really good teams, and the conference is as deep as I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and Matt, jump in here with questions because there's so many storylines to take. I know you've got them.
Hey, Tony, I was looking at the standings and just 100% agreement. This next month is going to be fantastic. I was looking at the last week of the schedule. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I am for a second. We got 2 intriguing matchups: Vanderbilt and Tennessee, and Texas A&M. Am I crazy to think if the cards play out right, could the league get 6 this year in the college football playoff? I mean, I know 5, but what about that thought?
Yeah, people have asked me about 6, and I just think I think it's going to be really, really tough for that committee. First of all, it's going to be tough for that committee to give the SEC 5 and the Big Ten 3. Okay, let's start there. Yeah. But to give them 6, I mean, I went. Well, all right. This is what I did this the other day. If the playoff were today, don't project. Right now, the playoff were to play today. Georgia, the SEC would have 5: Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. Okay,
right.
They would absolutely be there. But now you've got Texas, OU, Missouri, and I think those teams will be in the argument. But I think when it's all said and done, the SEC will have 5 and the Big Ten will have 3.
I would agree.
John Hartwell got a question. I want you to – this is from a viewer, Oscar the Grouch. Ask Hartwell how we break out of the insanity of midseason firings. I get it why red meat for the angry fan base, but it totally is unfair to teams like Tulane and Georgia Tech at all. Like these grammatical terms of good English, all of us learned English the right way at all, who are fighting to make the playoff. And add Kiffin to my list. I'm curious what you think about that. And then Tony, what you're hearing after that.
Yeah, I was having a conversation last night with an AD colleague and talking, about would there ever become a time where, just like Windows for the transfer portal, could you do that to coaches too? I mean, that's a left field thought process for sure. But here's the thing, Rob, and obviously, and I have talked to John Summerall this week. I've known him since he was a high school linebacker in Huntsville, and know his brother and his family pretty well. No question, a distraction, and no matter what you do as a coach, it's tough for your team. They play this evening, I think, against Texas San Antonio, but it's a tough situation. But I don't know that it's going to change. And the crazy thing is, I think it's going to be really hard for one of these guys, whether it's him or Clark Lee or whoever else, if somebody does take another job, it's still not going to be until December where, to do it the right way. And I know things don't always get done the right way, to take a job in advance of that. But it's, and then I know you sent me a couple of things about, hey, here in the great state of Louisiana and the governor getting involved and how that plays out. We could talk for hours about that whole situation.
Yeah. John, Tony, you saw the governor of Louisiana. What an interesting state politically. Just get started, Kingfish. Here we go.
You just touched on it. There is a long, long history of governors and politicians messing with LSU football. It is their pro franchise. All due respect to the New Orleans Saints. Huey Long did it, and. So that is. I was a little surprised this governor got involved, but then I heard him talk and said, no. I went, how about this, guys? Not only did he get involved in the firing, he's already told the athletic director, Scott Woodward, hey, dude, you ain't going to pick the next coach. I don't know who is, but it ain't going to be you.
I saw that yesterday. Yeah. Tony, what John just said about the insanity of the firings 3 or 4 weeks in. What can be done realistically, you think?
You mean in terms of coach and coaches movement and stuff like that? Nothing. Can you say antitrust?
Yeah.
Okay? You can't tell me where if I've got you do have to hold me to my contract. Yeah. And we have to hold each other to the contract, but you can't say when we're going to put restrictions on the coaches and the coaches movement. No, that is not going to happen.
Yeah. Looking at it too, Matt, you got questions. I just was going to say antitrust. My attorney, Jack Turner, always tells me, he goes, you start getting in antitrust, you're not going to win that battle. Matt?
Well, Tony, I'm a current coach, longtime coach, and I think it's probably an easier pill to swallow these days, knowing that everyone in that locker room is getting paid. Back in the day, if your coach was looking at another job and you're just on scholarship, cost of attendance, whatever, you get a little more bitter. But if I'm getting paid, I'm like, this is more of a business model, right? And I think, I'm not saying everyone understands it, but I think the players probably have a better understanding they did back in the day.
Yeah, and one other thing I would add in there, when you're talking about, well, it's not fair to the players or it's not fair to the coach, my dear friend Rick Neuheisel always reminds us that fair is where you go put a blue ribbon on a pig, okay? This has got nothing. This has got nothing to do with fairness.
That's right.
I love it. John?
Yeah, you talked earlier, Rob, about the current popularity of college football. And, there's a lot of people out there that are naysayers about NIL and transfer portal and all of that stuff. But, 5 years ago, if somebody would have told any of you guys, hey, we're going to be on the eve of November and we've got Georgia Tech, Indiana, Vanderbilt in the top 10.
Wow.
You'd ask them to go pee in a cup because there was something in their system that was awry.
Yeah. I agree. Tony, this is such a bizarre, you've got Texas Tech, you've got they're not even in top of the Big 12 and they spent more money than anybody. Mm-hmm. But Vanderbilt, in Indiana. Yeah, John's right. I mean, they'd put you in the nervous hospital if you'd have predicted this 5 or 10 years ago.
But it's easy to figure out how we got here. The fact of the matter is that the great players are now spread out among more schools, and they have the option to go someplace else. And so, well, he wouldn't go there. Well, yes, he will. If I pay him enough, he'll go there.
Right.
Yeah.
So the combination of NIL and the ability of coaches to move and all that, and the fact the players are getting paid, this is all, Vanderbilt doesn't happen without NIL. Okay, it doesn't, and it's one of the great stories that we've seen, and so it will be fun. And as these elimination games get closer and closer, we are going to have like I said, we're going to have a great November.
Yeah, I mean, November 8th, we're going up there to see Auburn play. I mean, I can't ever remember Auburn fans not going to Vanderbilt, having 80 or 90% of the stadium, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're going in there. I mean, they're winning. They beat LSU, and traditionally you'd think, okay, they'll collapse against Missouri. And they didn't play great, but they still found ways to win. Have you had a chance to talk to Clark Lee? I know he's coming to the Touchdown Club in Memphis November 10th, but he's an NBA guy, man, right there.
Yeah. No, I've not had a chance to talk to Coach Lee, but what he's done has just been absolute. Well, what Clark Lee did, guys, is he did what a lot of coaches don't want to do. They know they should do, and that's to take a very cold, calculated look at that roster and say, can we compete with this roster? And he looked at his roster and says, you know what? We're not big enough. We're not fast enough. We're not athletic enough. And we've got to make a commitment. My old broadcast partner, Wes Dorm, and I used to do a show together, and we always talked about the fact you either want to be in the football business or you don't want to be in the football business. And if you don't, that's fine. But don't delude yourself into thinking you can be in the football business and compete at this level if you don't make the commitment.
Yeah. And John and Matt, both of y'all athletic directors, and now Matt's back in coaching. The business side of it's huge, but at the end of the day, you still got to have the players. But where's your depth now? I mean, one of y'all take a stab at that. I mean, where is it?
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, and John, you can chime in on this, but I'm going to look at Vandy and Georgia Tech for a quick second.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech, their starting quarterback, Haynes King. My son was involved in his recruitment at A&M. His dad, longtime legendary high school coach in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
You knew the character of that kid and had some injuries throughout his career. And what a perfect match with Brent Key and Georgia Tech and their philosophies. And then you look at, I think Tony makes a great point. Vanderbilt, we think of Pavia off the charts, but look at the roster built around that. When I was watching the Alabama game, I know it was their only loss, but they're able to run the football against Bama. I don't think anyone could say that. If it wasn't for a couple turnovers, guys, that game would have been really interesting, even though I think Bama would have won. But I just think if you can find the quarterback in line of scrimmage play, you can turn your program around within 2 or 3 time frame with the money that they're paying kids these days.
Yeah, and it's the oldest team in the league, Tony. I mean, that's what's cool about it.
That is great, but remember, they just didn't bring Diego Pavia. They brought his offensive coordinator. They brought his head coach. So the transition, the learning curve almost did not exist. And that's, to me, that's the model moving forward. As everybody said, we're not just going to take the quarterback. We're going to take the people who coach this quarterback, so we don't have to teach him anything, pretty much. So
well, down on the once again, we're driving down from our daughter in Sandy Springs to the Auburn Georgia game early that morning, going right there by the varsity and Georgia Tech. They were playing Virginia Tech that day, Tony. Down on the flats. Now, a lot of people don't understand what that term means, down on the flats, but I know one thing. Per capita, I think Georgia Tech has more millionaires and gazillionaires than any school in America. People may not know that, but you get those people excited. It's just fun to watch.
Well, they are excited, and what I always tell people, what is Georgia Tech football supposed to look like? So dial it back. Look at George O'Leary. Look at what George O'Leary did at Georgia Tech. That is what Georgia Tech football is supposed to look like, and they do.
Yeah,
I mean, they have done a great job. Brent Key is, he is an old offensive lineman, and Rob and I, we've talked about this. I love offensive linemen. I love offensive line coaches because they will always tell you the truth.
Yeah. Oh, Brent's from Hewitt Trustful, right outside of Birmingham. So I mean, it's a great story. John Hartwell, you know John Sumrall. And I mean, his name is popping up everywhere. He played at Kentucky, but you talk about the relationships he has with the high school coaches in Alabama. As Chuck Oliver says, that's not nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I would put up the argument that John Sumrall has as good, if not better, relationships with the high school coaches in the state of Alabama, and you know, to some extent, you may not could say Georgia because Kirby's got really good relationships, but I would say John Sumrall's got better relationships with the high school coaches in the state of Alabama than any other coach, including the in-state Auburn and Alabama coaches, just because he's been at it so long. He's a product of that area. He's got an unbelievable personality. I told him the other day, I said, hey, John, you're all these articles about you, all these things, and you managed to maintain your wit. And he said, yeah, I got to keep up with Lane. And there's some truth to that too. You know,
good luck.
Thing about these rosters, you know, Rob, you know, a lot of change in college athletics, but two things that don't change in the formula of success: continuity and chemistry. And that's going to be really interesting to see this offseason as people who have had success and others come trying to poach players, how much it's going to cost to keep those rosters together. And the other thing, back to the coaching changes and searches and coaching contracts, I feel like regardless of the level, whether it's in the SEC or the Big Ten or the Sun Belt or Conference USA, you're going to have new coaches coming in who, between them and their agents, are going to demand in the contracts to have a certain level of NIL commitment there, because obviously that is key. And that's something, there's a handful of contracts that have been done in the last year or two that have that in there, but that's going to become a standard in coaches' contracts, is the commitment from the institution, the commitment from the collective or whatever the vehicle they're using to fund NIL, to make sure that they have the funds available to compete.
Yeah. Tony, that great take. And you were going to one of my favorite rivalries of all time. I mean, man, there's some property going to be destroyed tonight. You know, all those dog people have those condos rented up on Jekyll Island and Sea Island. Man, wow. Florida, Georgia. God, I love this game because it's college football, and it doesn't matter what the records are. These two teams are going to get after each other for a full 60. So let's talk about that. I get so fired up. I'm drinking orange juice.
Well, I went to my first Georgia-Florida game when I was a student back in 1975. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned to you, I'm down here with my boys. These are my fraternity brothers. We have it for the past 40 years. We've been coming to this game together, and we lost one of our boys 2 years ago. And we certainly do miss him. Tom McMillan was his name, from Ringgold, Georgia. Yeah. And we went out to dinner last night. We were in Darien, lovely Darien, last night. If you haven't checked it out, you need to do so. And the game just means so much. Well, it's more than a game. It's a lot more. You know, the game's great. Excuse me, and it's competitive, and it's going to be fun and all that. But of the four guys I'm down here with, we haven't been to all 40, but most of us have only missed a handful of games. The games that I missed was when I was working for CBS, and they wanted me in New York. And we're going to have a great day. We're leaving. We're leaving a little bit later this morning. We're headed to Jacksonville. We've got a nice place just off of TPC Sawgrass. So it's people have been coming to this game for 30 and 40 years. It's way bigger than a football game. These are friends that you see once a year. And it is just it's really, really special.
I mean, it really is. And you've got Billy Gonzalez that's going to be coaching Florida. I was on with Lauren Meadows Tuesday night, learned a lot about him from people who've coached him and coached with him. Kirby loves this game. It's a huge, huge recruiting game. You got the number 2 and the number 4 talent-rich states in America. That's how big this game is.
Yep. No, it absolutely is. And that's why, you know, there's been some pressure to move the game to campus and home and stuff like that, but that's not going to happen. There are too many people who care about it. And again, I fully expect this to be a close football game. Now, Georgia may pull away in the end like they've done in the last couple of games because that's the way they're built.
Yeah.
But no, you know those kids on that Florida side. What better way to salvage their season than to beat Georgia and put a crimp in their playoff hopes? It would be awesome.
Yeah, Matt.
Tony, I'm going to go outside the box here for a second because I want your take on this. I'm going to go to James Franklin for a second. I'm not an attorney, but I know there's some offset language on his next job with Penn State. But what's interesting to me, I grew up in Iowa, Big Ten guy by trade, and how they played for Coach Terry Smith, who's been a longtime assistant, very loyal guy to James Franklin. They led Iowa 21-10 at half. They lost 25-24. But after a bye week, I'm really curious. I think they're going to go up kind of a different mentality, but I think those guys want to do the same thing to Ohio State that Florida wants to do to Georgia.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to happen because it's in Columbus. But I'm really curious, where do you think when it plays out? Because you look at Franklin, you can say what you want about him, but Vanderbilt and then Penn State, last year he's in the national semis. He's a really good football coach. Where do you think he may end up?
I don't think he's going to be unemployed very long.
Right.
Just look at the numbers. Okay. He's a very good football coach. He's won every place he's ever been. I just think he found himself in an unusual situation. And people start, you guys know this because you've seen it. When people start throwing up numbers like he was 1-18 against top 10 teams in the Big Ten. Okay. I got it. But those kind of things don't go away. And sometimes these moves are it's best for both sides. And I think in the case of James Franklin, who I like a lot, the time had just come to make a change, and he'll do well. I mean, he's won a lot of football games. Did a great job at Vanderbilt and did a great job at Penn State. So,
well said.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about assistant stepping in to be the interim head coach. I'm going to be interested. I'm going to fast forward a week for a second. But, hey, don't underestimate Frank Wilson because here's the deal with Frank Wilson. Frank Wilson, a longtime New Orleans high school coach, athletic director. You talk about dialed in, and Frank actually, when I was at Ole Miss, Frank was on Orgeron's staff there at Ole Miss and recruited guys like Mike Wallace and unbelievable talent out of New Orleans. And so I expect to see LSU perform at a high level. Obviously, they've got a talented roster. I think that's part of people's frustration with Kelly. But it'll be interesting to see. Like everybody says, this is going to be a November to remember because there are some big-time games. And to see who shakes out 4 weeks from now is going to be really exciting.
Yeah. Tony, just a few years ago, and I don't know him, I'm sure you do, Lee Fitting, executive producer of ESPN Game Day, made a comment. He said, with the playoff expanding, what we would like to see happen is that in November, folks down in Enterprise, Alabama, and Folkston, Georgia, home of Champ and Boss Bailey, are as interested in college football, what's going on in the Apple Cup at the time, Washington State, Washington, because with a top 25 and 12 playoff spots, you got a lot of people thinking, hey, we got a chance. I mean, 2025, and it's happening. And I think it's even more than that. I'm telling you right here in Memphis, you got the Tigers are keeping their hopes alive with Ryan Silverfield, and an hour away in Oxford, where I go a lot, they're on fire. It's just, we keep the naysayers, if you don't have anything good to say, Mama always said, don't say anything. I mean, that's just true, but it just keeps getting better.
Yep. No, it does. And listen, where we are right now is that more games mean more down the end. Listen, when we had a 2-team playoff or a 4-team playoff, there were probably 8 or 9 teams that had a chance to get one of those spots, realistically, okay? Yeah. Now you've got 30 and 40 teams that have a chance to get into one of those slots. Yeah. And that means that every game – here's what it means. We're watching this game. We're watching this rivalry game. What does it mean? And that's what the TV guys want. I've known Lee Fitting for 20 years, and he's exactly right. This just gives a lot more people a chance to. You want to be in the discussion. Okay, the worst thing in the world is to get to November and nobody's talking about you at all. And that's what the playoff does. And when we go to 16, it's going to be even better. I told a group this the other day. I said, think about this. First day of the national championship playoffs, 16 teams, 8 home games make up the first round. 8. Yeah. How big a deal will that be?
Yeah. So, and Tony, and just a few more minutes. I know you got to get going. This is the thing I've learned. I'm against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports, except for the expanded playoffs, just increases eyeballs on TV all over the country. Can't say it enough. John, you were at Utah State. Those people out there, everybody in America loves college football. But look at the NFL's ratings. When the Giants at 9-7 in 2007 won the Super Bowl against that undefeated David and Goliath New England Patriots team. I mean, what were the ratings on that game? I mean, it's just to me, the storyline, and people say, well, these teams that get in there, they don't have a chance. You don't know. Who gave the Giants a chance that year? What did Shug Jordan say one time? Auburn was a prohibitive underdog in the Iron Bowl. They're going to Birmingham, and Coach Jordan was asked about Auburn's chances. He said, well, as I recall, David was a 40-point underdog to Goliath.
That's right.
It's just the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that you see is the parity between teams 1 through probably 50. I won't go all the way through the Power 4. I won't go 1 to 65, but 1 through 50, you've got an opportunity because of the money available and the spread, if you will, of the talent and so many talented folks out there. And quite frankly, we're still seeing the tail end of the COVID effect and people in their 5th, 6th, 7th years in a handful of cases in college football. So I do think, and again, back to the Vandy and Indiana and Georgia Tech being in the top 10, I think you've seen a spread of the talent. Now, when you get to 50 through 135, probably not so much, but the overall parity, I think that has been a significant factor in the increase in the popularity.
No. All right, Rob, I am so sorry. I am going to have to scoot.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget about your book, Tony, The 19 of Green. I love this book.
Thank you very much. We just had homecoming at Greene County High School. Got to see some of my teammates. It was great.
All right, Tony, thank you so much, man. We'll do it again here soon. Have fun.
Great to see you, Tony.
All right. You know, that one guy, you're talking about these guys that are in college for 6 and 7. And in one case, there was a guy at Miami last year in his 9th year of college football. He finished his medical fellowship at University of Miami Medical School, I think, while he was in college. Because you can go 4 years undergrad, 4 years of medical school, and then a year of fellowship. So that's the 9-year plan. And Gary Harris will join us in just a moment. He is driving to the Tide 100.9 studios in Tuscaloosa. Man, you can't get this anywhere else. You know John Sumrall. He's one of the hot names. Brent Key. I'm sure Tyler is having to hear about Dan Lanning. But that's a good thing. There was a great article The Athletic wrote last week about the coaching tree at Memphis. You know, in 2016, you had in the football staff at Memphis, Dan Lanning, outside linebackers coach, Chris Ball, who went on defensive coordinator, became head coach at University of Northern Arizona. You had Ryan Silverfield coaching the offensive line, Kenny Dillingham on that staff. That's amazing. I'm just curious. We'll step out and go to Tallahassee. Either one of y'all, how's it falling apart so badly at Florida State? Is it when they all quit on the team because they didn't make the playoffs? 31 guys quit and they got killed by Georgia. They've never been able to get it back. How do you fix that?
Well, John, I would contend that they had a pretty good start against Alabama this year. I mean, they were 3-0, right? And the Virginia game took a little win out of their sails. That I think it was a Friday night game, John. I think it was double overtime loss. But I'll tell you what was eye-opening to me, John. I watched them play Pitt at home. And I can't pronounce his last name. I'm a little embarrassed. But Pitt's got a young quarterback that they put in the lineup. I don't know if it was because of performance or injury. that has just been fascinating to watch. And Pitt's got a nice football team. And I just don't, Rob, I hear what you're saying about the whole not in the playoffs. I'll tell you where I think it really hurts. If you get in the playoffs that year, those guys don't leave the program, then they're going to play in that game, right?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is there's still Kirby can make an argument that year that they got royally, whatever. His team was ready to play in that game, and Norvell's left him. So what does that say? I think I'm going to tie this in with the locker room. I think, and John's got a lot more experience hiring quality coaches than I do. I've hired a few. But I'm going to tell you what, we're missing the boat on recycled head coaches. Find you a coordinator. I love either O-line guys or defensive guys that are a little more polished than Ogeron. That's what I like. And let those
Ogeron's pretty polished.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. My point is those guys can control the locker room. Find me a young, up-and-coming offensive coordinator, because if he's got too much cred, he's going to want too much money, or he's going to go become a head coach somewhere else. Take a chance in a young guy, John, that can coach the offense, and give me that tough, hard-nosed defensive guy that's a coordinator that can run my football team.
Keep preaching, Matt. You're spot on there.
You're on the roll.
As Rob says, a truth teller. But I'll say this, and I'll go back to the question about Florida State, and I watched some of that Pitt game as well. Here to me, and how they beat Alabama, other than Alabama just thinking they were going to walk in there and win easily, is amazing, because I think the biggest deficiencies at Florida State are the offensive and defensive lines. And I agree with you about offensive line coaches. They are some of the most down there that, don't give me all the pretty boys. I want the big nasties. The big nasties are what are going to help you win games. And, Florida State recruiting wise, they've got some skill position guys, but if you don't create the time or the holes for the running backs, or the time for the quarterback to find his wideouts, those guys don't do you any good. And I hate to say this as an indictment, but it looks like Florida State, for whatever reason, has been asleep at the wheel recruiting wise in terms of putting together a complete team.
Well, it does. And Gary Harris is in with us now, Channel 23 WVUA sports director, does a great show Tuesday nights, folks. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr. Gary's also got a great show right after this, Tide 100.9. Put that app on your phone. Gary has great guests, asks a lot of great questions, and you will learn a boatload about college football and sports, and just one of the good guys in the business. And if you're an aspiring journalist, want to get into the media, just watch how this guy reacts. Gary, you know how rational fans are. They don't ever overreact. But you know what? The fact that the Alabama fans went ballistic, which I would too, after that first game, look what the response has been. And have you had a chance to talk to Ryan Grubb and Ty Simpson this year, and just how he's matured and just how things are starting to fall in place? And Kalen DeBoer didn't forget how to coach.
Right, Rob. And I think that you said the key word for Ty Simpson's maturity. I don't think that when he got here, the talent was there. He was a 5-star prospect out of high school. Yeah. So, but I don't think he would have been ready for this. And in his case, I think when he got here initially, maybe not right away, but after a year or so, there was some frustration. There was some angst, some impatience. But he, with the help of his dad, who's the college coach there at Tennessee Martin, and I think some other people around him, just said, you know what, learn, soak it all in. And when your time comes, be ready for it. And I think it's easy to forget that 2 years ago, he kind of came in and bailed Alabama out in that game against South Florida down in Tampa, which when Jalen Milroe didn't play, and they were on their way to losing that game, and he came in. But, after that, Milroe came back, and he really didn't play much and had never started a game. But when he started the season, he was ready for it. And, he's in his 4th year. He's already a college graduate. And the way that he's played, I think, is in direct relation to, first of all, his talent, but also his patience. And then having a year here with even though Ryan Grubb wasn't here, having a year with Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer, Rob, and not having to be rushed and knowing that he wasn't really going to play last year. And that set everything up for him toward this season. All his focus was on becoming the starter, winning the job because it was a competition. And now we see what he's done. And you mentioned the first game against Florida State. And I guess now we can call it kind of an anomaly or an outlier because after that game, I'd been on the show and said, man, everything I'm hearing out of Alabama is, man, they love this team and they're all on the same page. And it's, and big things are coming. Then that game happens and you're like, whoa, and, but obviously they are the team that we thought that they would be. And, listen to Ryan Grubb and Ty Simpson talk this year, and there's a confidence. There is a feeling that regardless of the situation, we can make the plays that we need to make. And that's really the difference. I mean, I said this a lot lately, and I'll see if you guys agree. You look at a 5-0 Alabama team in the SEC or a 4-1 team in the SEC, like a Georgia, and you look at a 1-4 team or an 0-5 team, there's not that much difference. There really isn't. You look at Auburn at 1-4, and you look at Georgia at 4-1. And it's a play here and there, and those records could be reversed. In Mississippi State, my goodness, it's one thing to say you played well and you had a chance. They should have beat Tennessee. Yes. They should have beat Florida. They should have beat Texas. Mm-hmm. And look at what we would be saying about Mississippi State. Instead, they're going to be a bottom dweller again. It's a fine line, and the key is, does your team make the critical plays at the critical times? And Alabama has done that. And it could, without that, they could have lost the Georgia game. They could have lost the Vanderbilt game. They could have lost the Missouri game. And they could have lost the South Carolina game. And we could be talking about whether or not Kalen DeBoer is going to have a job. Yeah. It's that fine a line. But the good teams, the teams that are going to want to make those plays. And Alabama's been able to do that this year. And they didn't make them all the time last year.
Yeah, you're right. And again, you and I have had a lot of great off-air conversations. I remember in my mother-in-law's driveway after Tennessee beat Alabama in 2022, and you called me and you said, when Alabama loses with Nick Saban, it's epic. It is. I mean, it's the lead story. Good evening, I'm Walter Cronkite. Alabama lost to Tennessee today. That's the way it is. I mean, and it still is. But I will say this, John Hartwell, as an athletic director, you feel no pressure as the athletic director when the football program is on fire. But when they're struggling, I bet you stay up. You know what? It would help you sleep at night, those lights out gummies from our good friend Dave Bartu. And they help me sleep, I can tell you that.
I mean, you're tied totally to your football program. Again, football is the engine that drives the train. And ask Martin Jarman at UCLA right now. Ask Scott Woodard at LSU. We've been talking about Florida State. Ask Mike Alford. Every day you pick up and read something. So it's, there are a lot of components to it, but football is the engine that drives the train.
Yeah. Rob, I got a question for John. And I'm going to get John on my show. But I am just, first of all, what other business, and I know as an AD, you're in the marketplace for how it's done. What other business operates the way college athletics departments do as far as these contracts are concerned? I don't know of any other business where you sign and you are basically rewarded with a contract that guarantees, even if you fail, that you're paid regardless of if you're bad at your job, you still get financially rewarded. Most jobs, when you don't do well, they move on from you. Maybe there's a little severance package there. So I don't know how these athletic departments and ADs got themselves leveraged. And then Governor Landry came out yesterday, and I was a little bit stunned. And I know Scott Woodward is highly respected, but he said what everybody was thinking. Hey, you hired a guy at Texas A&M, they had to pay him $70-something million. Now you hired a guy at LSU, and they're having to pay him $50-something million. You're not picking the next coach. So I think there's starting to be some pushback for these ridiculous buyouts that are in these contracts.
Yeah, there really is. But part of that equation, Gary, is the fact that if, let's just say 10 ADs in the SEC say, hey, we're not doing this any longer, and, a handful still do, then the best coaches are going to migrate to that. And I know, I mean, he didn't call him by name, but the governor also made reference to Jimmy Sexton yesterday,
Sure did.
too, which was kind of wild as well. And, the length of contract, the amount of money, the buyouts, all of those things. I mean, these 6, 8, 10-year contracts, I think Signetti's new contract at Indiana is 8 years. I don't care who you are. There's a lot of things that can change both with the institution and football program or the individual. That it's just not, I mean, it goes back to your original point. There are a lot of things in college athletics that are not sound business decisions and are not done in any other business. And I do think you're going to see a pushback. Is it going to get totally eliminated? Not until everybody bands together. And, I've heard this term before, that Jimmy Sexton is playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers.
Yeah.
He's controlling the chess pieces right now for sure.
Yeah.
All right. One more thing, Rob. I'm not trying to hijack the show. I'm just really interested.
That's what we do.
I'll say this for Brian Kelly. He had a resume when LSU hired him. So, there aren't that many coaches that have the kind of resume that would legitimize these type of contracts. So what I see has happened, John, and all of you guys, Matt, is Matt's been in administration too, is when you hire, especially in the SEC, you hire a coach, you can't hire a coach with the perception that he's not on level with these top guys. You overpay these guys based on perception. So you maybe, obviously if Nick Saban came out of retirement, you pay him whatever he wants. But so you hire a guy from a lower level and you pay him though, like he is on the same level as the top guys. And that's where this thing's just gotten out of whack because no school wants to hire a coach at well under market value because then everybody's saying, well, this guy's not very good. So that's, that to me needs to change too. Maybe you offer a guy, if you don't get your top guy, you offer this guy and say, listen, here's the offer. We're not going to, we're going to give you a $10 million buyout and that's going to be it. Take it or leave it. So kind of what you referenced, John, couldn't you change the marketplace if people just use common sense here?
Yeah, I think you shorten the term of the contracts. Maybe, again, maybe it goes from $11 or $12 million as the high end of coaching to 15. But and I know that people are saying, well, that's more money on an annual basis. Yes, it is on an annual basis. But you make it a 2-year contract and say, hey, we're going to evaluate this. And if you don't meet these criteria, we're going to pay you we're not going to pay you 100% of what the remaining base contract is. We're going to pay you 30% or whatever it may be. Hey, guys, I got to, I'll give my wife credit here. I don't know what time this morning this came, but you talk about the importance of college athletics and who's paying attention. This is from the real Donald Trump this morning. We're conducting the most incredible coaching search you've ever seen. People are calling from everywhere. NFL, college, even Canada. Terrible football up there, by the way. Only the best will make it. Tremendous names. LSU will win again. I mean, you got the president of the United States.
So he really is involved.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Watching that Louisiana governor yesterday. Just can't get any better than this. But
no,
it mattered. Matt, jump back in here with us. This is a great conversation. And Gary, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point.
So, Gary, right before you came on, I was advocating for the coordinator route, and I think to your point, sometimes it's hard for ADs to take a chance on an upcoming coordinator because, everyone wants the creme de la creme and there's a lot of pressure. But I was an assistant college coach for 10 years for a highly successful head coach whose name's on our floor right now, Hall of Famer. And I remember going to interviews and everyone wants to ask you, your assistant coach, well, you don't have head coaching experience. And the answer is, well, I really can't get it till someone gives me a chance. And I think, as an AD, sometimes you really have to go out on a limb when you're making a hire. I know the Oregon staff well because my son works there, and they got some phenomenal coordinators. I mean, I love Will Stein on the offense. I love Tosh Lupoy on the defense. I'm telling you, a guy who can win the locker room is Tosh Lupoy, former Alabama employee. Gary, and
I know Tosh. I got to know him a little bit when he was here. Yeah,
and I just think sometimes as an AD, you got to go out on a limb and take a chance. But as John will probably attest to, if it doesn't work out, it may mean you're gone too. So I agree with everything you're saying, Gary, but I'm always advocating for coordinators because I was in that spot as an assistant coach for a long time.
Yeah. Gary, you look at the number of guys who've come through when Nick Saban was at Alabama and have gone on and done other things. And, that I don't know who the best one is, but I've always heard Lane Kiffin was the guy who would challenge and say, hey, we ought to try this or that. And that's good because you don't want to live in an echo chamber.
Oh, there's no doubt from what, being here the 3 years that Lane Kiffin was here, that he would, from what I was told at practice, clap back a little bit. Of course, sometimes the problem was he wasn't at practice. They would look at Saban would say, where's Lane?
Wow.
They'd have to
we
go
heard.
But no, he is. You talk about Lane Kiffin, and I guess why he's in this position that he's in. Because let's remember, he hasn't won a championship as a head coach, at least not at the high level. He didn't win one at USC, didn't win one at Tennessee, he hasn't won one at Ole Miss. I can't remember if he won one at FAU. Maybe he did. But his offensive mindset is it is about as good as I think I've ever seen. His ability to dial up plays. And again, I think we've talked about this, Rob. When he got to Alabama, it wasn't, A.J. McCarron had just left after 3 years as a starter, and it wasn't quarterback central the way it is now. He took Blake Sims, who had been a running back, a defensive back, a wide receiver, backup quarterback, and had an incredible record-setting season with Blake Sims. Then he took Jake Coker, who was kind of a Florida State cast-off and had never been a starter in college football, and won a national championship with him. Then he took a freshman who had just turned 18 years old, straight out of high school, and Jalen Hurts, and that team was 14-0. And, seconds away from being 15-0. And, of course, Kiffin, I think if Kiffin had been the offensive coordinator in that national championship game, Alabama would have won it. But he got to a point with all the things that were going on that Saban said, go ahead and go to FAU. But what he can do with quarterbacks, we're seeing it at Ole Miss. I mean, he takes the guys. Simmons' number one guy goes down, brings in a guy from Division II, and now he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Lane Kiffin is a special offensive coach. Now, again, as a head coach, at some point, he's fine at Ole Miss winning 9-10. They seem to still think he's the best, but at some point you got to break through. And I'll be interested to see if he does that this year.
Yeah. Yeah. John, I know you got to get to a bowling practice here in a moment, but tell people, I had several people have texted me. Ott Routes just texted me and said, John, tell people what you're doing, the name of your company that you're part of now. You bought equity in. This is big news.
Yeah, College Sports Solutions. So I'm working with a guy named Jeff Schimmel, who's the AD at San Diego State for a while, was at K-State, Minnesota. He's actually been in the business for about 12 years, more on the consulting side than the coaching search side. But he has been gracious enough to let me come aboard and concentrate primarily on the coaching search side, but I'll be doing some financial consulting as well. Obviously, a lot going on right now in that marketplace, and there are really three search firms out there who kind of have a somewhat of a corner on the Power Four jobs, but we're going to work those. We're going to work some of the Group of Fives, and where the most significant opportunities are is in football and men's basketball, but we're going to do some things creatively in some of the other coaching search areas too. But really excited about that. And like you said, moving down to Fairhope and excited about that. Hey, Rob, let me take just a second because two quick questions that came up along the side too that I was going to respond to. The comment about contracts having guarantees as it relates to the amount of NIL in there. And somebody said, well, hey, the university can't guarantee that. No, that's a really good point. But foundations associated with the university can guarantee those amounts, just like foundations guarantee some of the incentives and other things in coaches' contracts. So that's along those lines. Somebody also asked, well, hey, in a buyout deal, what kind of percentage of the buyout would Jimmy Sexton or other agents get? Normally 4%, somewhere in there. Some coaches, that number varies a little bit, but that's kind of a baseline standard, which is not, chump change by any means.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, I got to jump out too.
Gary, Thank you so much, Gary. We'll do it again next week. John as well. I know y'all both got to go, but this is great conversation. Appreciate it so much. Matt, wow. God, learned a lot. And there was a lot of questions about Lane Kiffin. For the record, and I got this from my attorney and also from Yancey Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, a big member of our show, one of our team members. The state of Mississippi, you have 4-year state contracts, but then the Loyalty Foundation, in this case at Ole Miss, can kick in and make that contract go 6, 7, 8 years or whatever. We started these 10-year contracts with Charlie Weiss when he was at Notre Dame. He came in, he got Brady Quinn. He was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. Life's not that easy. After Brady Quinn left, Charlie Weiss just got, fatter and became a worse coach. That's just what happened to him. Matt, looking at the games this weekend in the SEC, Bama's off, Arkansas and Mississippi State, Auburn and Kentucky, Vanderbilt goes to Texas, Florida, Georgia. There's good games. Oklahoma is going to Tennessee. Ole Miss hosts South Carolina. Look, everywhere you go, the margin of victory in SEC games this year is around 10 points. That's the average difference. Seems like it's closer than that. You don't see a whole lot of blowouts. But you know what else you're not seeing a lot of in college football? Running backs knocking out 60, 70, and 80-yard runs from the line of scrimmage. That used to be – I grew up with guys like James Brooks. I still think is the greatest breakaway runner in Auburn history. 5'9", 167 pounds out of Warner Robins, Georgia. James Brooks was the man. And, of course, Bo Jackson was good too. Brent Fuller, there's so many of them. But you picked the school. Why is that?
Well, I think people, we talk about spending on quarterback play, Rob,
yeah.
But I also think people are spending on line of scrimmage play. And I think the defensive lines and the defenses and the amount of money we're paying coordinators, I think teams are just better across the board. Like Tony mentioned it earlier. And I honestly think if you look at this weekend, I think we have an elimination game in Knoxville, Oklahoma and Tennessee. I think it's a must win for Texas here on out. They have got to beat Vanderbilt. I think we could have an intriguing Vanderbilt-Tennessee game in the final game of the year. If both those teams have 2 losses, that's probably an elimination game. And we talked earlier, Tony has mentioned 5 teams in the SEC. I knew 6 was not going to happen. But I just tell you, there's so much depth in the SEC. And I think a really good point was made today. Look at the progress Mississippi State has made only to come up short at Florida and against Texas in overtime. In Tennessee, I don't think it takes long to get back there if you have the right play caller, which Ole Miss does, and you're investing money in the right spots. I think everyone early on thought that Texas Tech had kind of hit a magic formula this year, and it looks like that they may not even win the Big 12. We'll see what plays out there. But I can't remember this much excitement over 2 lost teams playing in November. Can you? Because we didn't have that. And when we get to 16, which we will, now all of a sudden, as Tony said, we're going to have 8 of those home games on college campuses. You talk about more excitement, and you eliminate the buys, it doesn't add to the total number of games. I think another question, Rob, when we do go to 16, is going to be at what point does the conference tournaments, championship games, become too much in the postseason for these college kids to play that amount of football on the way to a national championship?
Yeah, and that is a question I can't answer yet. I don't even feel strong enough to make a prediction. Because they make a lot of money, but yeah, that the November excitement is what I love is keeping people's interest. And okay, look at that: Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Texas. Texas is still out there at 6-2, and we talked about it this week a lot. But they've had to go on the road back to back and beat the 2 bottom teams in the conference, Kentucky and Mississippi State, who are winless in this league, and took them overtime in both cases. That is how tough the SEC is. And Oklahoma, Brent Venables, John Mateer's hand. We have to talk about that every day at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that guy's going to come back. They got a metal plate or something in his hand. I heard him saying that can't feel good. It makes my stomach up just thinking of that. because that would hurt beyond belief. So look about, Mississippi State. They are so close.
They are.
If they get some help on defense, and they're going to ring those cowbells for NIL money. Usually they have great defensive linemen. I mean, name me a team in the SEC that you could just go on autopilot and beat. It's just, I don't see it. Anybody, not Kentucky,
right?
Even because they're good. Their
Well,
defense is quite good.
You mentioned Oklahoma. What an impact that injury made on their season. We were talking John Mateer, Heisman candidate. We were talking Oklahoma for sure in the football playoffs. Now it's hard to see a path to get there, and we forget Texas has to go to Georgia next week.
I know.
And they still have to play A&M, and they play a really good Vanderbilt top 10 Vandy team this weekend. So
think about that. Think about those games you just mentioned. There's, someone here's saying it's ruining the regular season. I don't think so. Now I'll compare it to basketball. When you got a good team in basketball, and you want to get to March, but you're not going to do much in March if you don't do it during the regular season. I mean, I don't miss a game. These SEC, and Matt, you're on tip of the spear with our basketball coverage on this channel. Man, I think it's increasing interest is what I'm seeing. So, I mean, Matt, look, I will be over there for lunch today at the Lynx Lair, 11:36 a.m. Central. I just looked at the time. We got to wrap it up. But, Matt, some of the best stuff you've ever put out there. It just keeps getting better. So I love it. And you got practice today before I get there or after?
We actually scrimmage tonight. So we open up our regular season a week from tomorrow, Rob. It's real. And, quickly, this time of year, we're sharing the gym with volleyball and men's basketball. We practiced last night, got out of the gym at 9:30. Okay. And these student athletes are in class the next morning. And I coach future lawyers and doctors and businesswomen. It's just an incredible experience. We don't deal with NIL at Rhodes. But a Rhodes degree matters, and it's been a pleasure to be here 35 years.
Way better than NIL, I can tell you that. All right, Matt, I'll see you in a little bit. Thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
You got it.
All right. Hey, man, Landers Ford, look over my left shoulder here. There you go. Open every day of the week except Sunday. Just do yourself a favor. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. Tell him what you're looking for. Hey, you got a truck you want to trade in or a car, or you want to get a new one? They've got the Broncos. They're top 5 in the country in expedition sales. LandersFordMemphis.com. Service department. Hell, they'll pick you up, round trip transportation. Anywhere that you are at, they'll pick you up, take you in to get your vehicle worked on. Get out there. Don't let, the dreading is so bad. Just go ask for help from Brad Bellamy, the general manager. They'll get you covered. If you didn't buy your last vehicle there, you probably paid too much. They're right down the street from our good friends at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, where my wife grew up, and Mark Ham and Max Ham, all of them. It's a great place. They've got the best looking selection of men's and women's clothing for the gentlemen's and the ladies' outdoor and country life. They've got Ariat. They've got over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. They even got boots for the kids, man, 6, 7s, and 8s. They've got the luggage from Filson and Barber, STS. Heck, they've got Pendleton, Schaefer. Look at these Duckhead collection. I've never seen more Duckhead stuff in my life. Dave Tompkins and Maury Gaston would be apocalyptic if they went in there and saw all these Duckheads. But they've got hours of operation, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Charles Hall, his wife Laura, JM, Raven, the whole crew out there makes the experience the best you've ever had when you're going to look for great stuff to wear. Hewlett and Dunn. Hey, Rumble Boxing. How you fight is how you live. Union and McLean, Midtown Memphis, open every day of the week. Get to the best shape of your life. And the Pro Athletes Hemp Association Lights Out Gummies. You got to love them. 25% off. Use promo code Sidelines at checkout. You'll get the best night's sleep you've ever had with the Lights Out Gummies. They also have energy and chill. Great people. Look, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the greatest country in the history of the world. For executive producer Brendan Martin, thank you all for watching, sharing, and liking us. We'll see you tonight. Have a great day.